The NFL draft is in 3 weeks, and the Combine had some interesting headlines that could have had a big impact. Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night, NFL Draft Edition. I am your host, Jacob Gold, and I am joined by analysts Nate Johns and Owen Daszko. These analysts each made their own mock draft, and it's going to be pretty interesting. We're going to make our way from the 10th pick all the way down to the coveted number 1 pick. And Nate, I will start with you.
So yeah,
let's go into your picks.
Yeah, so we're going to take a look at number 1 here, and this seems to be a pretty consensus pick, despite the fact that earlier the Titans talked about how maybe they wanted to go with who they view as the best player at number 1, but that seems to be Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. Put up absolute video game numbers, and obviously Will Levis not being the answer in Tennessee. Titans ended up with the number 1 overall pick because of it, so we see him there. Then we go down to the Browns with Shedeur Sanders, one of the more polarizing quarterback prospects in the draft, although you could say this has been one of the more polarizing quarterback classes in recent history. Not a lot of love for the guys throwing the football, but Sanders, he's patient in the pocket. He does all the things Kevin Stefanski loves in a quarterback. So, could see that being a fit in Cleveland. Then we go down to his college teammate in Travis Hunter. Hunter, the two-way star out of Colorado. I think he's better suited to play defense, be that lockdown corner, and then work on that red zone offense. And then we get to Abdul Carter for New England. Obviously, the Patriots, big defensive overhaul this offseason. They go to the Penn Stater. Carter put up insane numbers, especially for his first year being a defensive end. Where did we see? Haven't we seen something like that little bit before from a guy at Penn State? I don't know. But then we get down to number 5 with Mason Graham. Obviously, Jacksonville needs to fix that defensive line. Graham doesn't do anything special. He's not really that great athletically, but he's a solid foundational player there for Jacksonville. And then we get to Ashton Jeanty for the Raiders. We look at the Raiders. They bring in Geno Smith. Still looking for some help at receiver, but not really a number 1 caliber receiver there in the draft. So they go to the running game with the guy from Boise State, who many people thought should have won the Heisman, had a fantastic season overall, going to do a lot of good things out in Vegas. And then another Penn Stater, triple threat Tyler Warren coming in at number 7 to the New York Jets. Not necessarily a quarterback spot for them anymore. They brought in Justin Fields on a 2-year deal, so get him some weapons. Jalen Walker to Carolina at 8. Looking at Walker, he's a bit of a linebacker edge, sort of a hybrid player, kind of like what Trayvon Walker, no relation there that we know of, to him coming out of Georgia from a couple of years ago, has a lot of athletic upside, and Carolina, another team that needs to sort of replenish that pass rush, lost some talent on that defensive line. Brian Burns was gone last offseason, never really bothered to replace him. Then we get to Armand Membu for the Saints, one of the big risers from the NFL Combine. He's been a right tackle, but there's a lot of questions with some of these tackles about whether or not their arms meet that 34-inch threshold that you look for in an offensive tackle. So worst case scenario, he's going to kick inside to guard and still probably be very good, especially with what the Saints have been doing, getting some offensive line help in Talisa Fuaga last year. He had a really good season down in the Bayou. And then we get to probably my shocker of the first round, we're going to say, with Omari and Hampton out of North Carolina. Ben Johnson, he comes from a 2 running back system in Detroit, had a lot of work with that Thunder and Lightning, Sonic and Knuckles backfield, whatever you want to call it, it worked. And Hampton, he's going to be that bruising back, even though he does have some long speed, going to work really well with DeAndre Swift. Jahdae Barron to the Niners, that's some secondary depth that they need, especially after Charvarius Ward left in the offseason, obviously. A lot of stuff going on there. You got Matthew Golden out of Texas to the Cowboys. They need more big play threats on offense. Will Campbell for the Dolphins because Teron Armstead's constantly on the verge of retirement. Colston Loveland for the Colts because they need more pass-catching threats, especially after Kylan Granson left earlier in the offseason. Michael Williams, a guy who could go anywhere from really the top 5 down to 20. So big range for him there. And then Derek Harmon, love what he did at Oregon. Really good pass rush moves, especially for a defensive tackle. And then we get to the back half of the first round. Mike Green for the Bengals. Adam Marshall, wondering what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson there. Tyler Booker for Seattle because a lot of questions about that offensive line. You got Jahad Campbell, one of the real player-to-team fits that we've seen a lot in this mock draft cycle, another kind of linebacker edge hybrid. Interested to see how Todd Bowles can use him, especially on those third down passing situations. Tedero McMillan for Denver out of Arizona. He had a really good year despite the fact his quarterback, Noah Fafita, really didn't do all that well this year. So interesting to see what Sean Payton can get out of him, especially because Cortland Sutton's contract's coming up. Jalen Milroe, the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the future. A lot of rumors surrounding Milroe and where he can go in the draft. A lot of rumors around Pittsburgh. He's got great upside. He's got running ability. He's got a cannon for an arm, but not necessarily the most accurate quarterback. But you can teach accuracy. You cannot teach the athletic skills that Jalen Milroe has in his arsenal. Emeka Egbuka to the Chargers, kind of a receiver depth kind of move there. Will Johnson to the Packers is 23. I think he falls a little bit in the draft with his long speed concerns, although his 40-yard dash time, which 40-yard dash doesn't mean as much for corners, but it means more for offensive linemen. But Johnson, he was able to put some of those concerns to rest, but the injury history is also there. And then my guy, Malachi Starks, the 24 to the Vikings. Love Malachi Starks. He does everything in the secondary. He can play a bit of a nickel corner. He can play in the slot. He can play over on a two-high safety look that a lot of NFL teams have gone to recently. Kelvin Banks to Houston. They need a lot of offensive line help. Shamar Stewart, that's an upside pick for the Rams. Not a lot of college production. And then we got James Pierce, Gray Zabel, Maxwell Hairston, Kenneth Grant, Josh Simmons, and then Nick Eamon-Wari to Philadelphia to round out round number 1.
Nate, I'm impressed. That was amazing. Owen, we will move to yours, but first I want to touch on Nate's a little bit. Nate, do you see anyone trading up in the draft, such as I heard a rumor about the Philadelphia Eagles maybe trading up with the Minnesota Vikings to get the Philadelphia Bulldogs safety on that team. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're going to see teams trade up in round 1. It's weird, though, because we haven't seen a team trade their first-round pick yet. So it's interesting, all 32 teams in their original slots, but a lot of moves will come on draft night, I'm sure.
I agree. Owen, your turn.
Yeah, I'll start at number 1, obviously, with the Tennessee Titans. I have them selecting Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. They need a quarterback. They obviously don't have that answer at the position with Will Levis. And Brian Callahan has built a relationship with Cam Ward, and we've seen that with all smiles at Miami's Pro Day. Now at number 2, Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State. I think this is a great fit in Cleveland. The pairing with Myles Garrett, who they just signed to a big contract extension, I think that could be a very productive pairing for years to come in Cleveland. Travis Hunter for New York. They're pointing towards not taking a quarterback like a Shedeur Sanders, and let's take his teammate in Travis Hunter, who can play both ways if needed. If they find him being better at the wide receiver position, they can pair him up with Malik Neighbors, or they can pair him up with a Deonte Banks and some guys that they signed in free agency. Number 4 for the Patriots, I have them taking an offensive lineman in Armand Membu. They need to protect Drake May, and they'll have an offensive lineman with Armand Membu, who has great arm length, has great athleticism, showed that at the combine. Now at number 5, Mason Graham, D-tackle out of Michigan. I think he's a great fit on that defensive line with Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. That's just a perfect pairing. And the new GM in Jacksonville needs to get this pick right. Mason Graham is the safe pick here. At number 6, Ashton Jeanty, running back, Boise State. Obviously, like Nate said, Heisman candidate, could have won the Heisman. So he
arguably should have.
Yeah. So he should be the pick there. They need a running back. Their running back position wasn't great last year, and they just need guys that can produce on offense. Next, Tyler Warren.
Well, sorry, Owen. I'm going to just interrupt really quick. Talk about the Raiders. Their production at running back, moving on from Josh Jacobs, that was big. And if they can get Ashton Jeanty, I think that would really help the run game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Next, I got Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. You saw how Penn State was able to maximize Tyler Warren's potential. Maybe you can do that with new head coach Aaron Glenn. And the New York Jets, they haven't really had a tight end in their history that's been notable. So Tyler Warren could be that for New York. Next, Jalen Walker, edge rusher, hybrid, like Nate said, out of Georgia. Comparisons to Trayvon Walker and maybe even Micah Parsons, that's a bit of a stretch. but the Panthers, they need to get some defensive help, and they need to have a better defense next year. They were one of the worst in NFL history last year, so a big need filled with the Panthers. Now at number 9, this is a shocking pick to most. I have Shedeur Sanders, QB out of Colorado, and I think this would be a great fit in New Orleans, and it would replace Derek Carr, who's not the answer, not the future at that QB position in New Orleans. Kind of fits the culture there in New Orleans with Shedeur Sanders. Now at number 10, I got Will Campbell, offensive lineman. I think they bolster that offensive lineman in free agency. Maybe you don't see Braxton Jones as that answer at left tackle. I think developing an offensive tackle to replace him in years to come, I think would help in Chicago. And notable 11, I got the San Francisco 49ers selecting Mykel Williams. They need a pass rusher opposite Nick Bosa. They failed to find it with Dee Ford and a lot of other edge rushers they've tried out there. And then 13, Will Johnson, cornerback, Michigan. I think they need to find a replacement for Jalen Ramsey. He's not getting any younger, and that would be a great fit there. Obviously, Colston Loveland. They wanted Tyler Warren. They probably want Tyler Warren, but Colston Loveland will have to do. And then Shamar Stewart and Kenneth Grant to Atlanta and Arizona.
So, just showing the rest of Daszko's picks for this NFL draft. I think you guys did a great job with your picks. The NFL draft this year is just going to be very interesting, taking place in Green Bay, and I'm looking forward to seeing what all these GMs will do. And, for Owen, Daszko, and Nate Johns, thank you so much for watching. I am Jacob Gold signing off. Have a great night.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Penn State Sports Night.
For more content like this and so much more, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and X. For everyone here at Penn State Sports Night,
We are
Penn State Sports Night.